Do I start? Yeah, okay, great. Hello, everyone. I am Sam Harley. I am the production designer on Sex Ed, and welcome to the Sex Ed webinar on behalf of the BFDG. We're here today to talk through the process and design for sex education. This year, we were really proud to have been acknowledged by our peers by receiving a BFDG award. And hopefully this webinar will give you a little insight into how we created the world of sex education. And before we start this forum, may I just tell you a little bit about the British Film Designers Guild. The BFDG is a flourishing, growing professional group of talented individuals who have over 550 accredited members of skilled creatives and production designers, spanning the various branches of the art department in film, television and commercials. It was formed with the aim of raising the standards and profile of the art department and protecting the interests of its members for over 75 years. Those core principles still apply today, and we are a thriving and evolving creative community. I would like to introduce you to a small selection of our amazing Sex Ed team who were able to join us today. So, firstly, we have Samantha J. Cliff, our supervising art director. We have Miri Katz, who is our season 1 and season 2 set decorator. We have Alexandra Slade, who's our season 2 and 3 set decorator. We have Christina Tom, our season 2 and 3 art director. Jack Bowles, our season 2 and 3 graphic designer, and Emma Ryder, our series 1, 2 and 3 assistant art director. And we also have a very, very special guest today. We are so grateful that he's come to join us. It's been close, and he's had to really rush to get to us, so we really appreciate it. But I'd like to introduce Ben Taylor, our director and executive producer. We're we're able to speak about series 1 and 2 in this webinar, so sorry, we cannot speak about series 3. So to get everyone in the mood, I wanted to show everyone the series 1 trailer. So I will do this now.
I've noticed you're pretending to masturbate, and I was wondering if you wanted to talk about it.
Oh, I wish my mum was a sex guru.
So, why don't you start by telling me your earliest memory of your scrotum?
Trust me, you don't.
You know I love you so bad.
This is a new frontier, my sexually repressed friend. Our chance to finally move up the social food chain.
Love you so bad.
I'm worried about you, man. Everybody's either thinking about shagging, about to shag, or actually shagging.
The students at this school need your help, and we need their money. I'll deal with the business end of things, and you can do the therapy.
Therapy?
Yeah, sex therapy. Like your mum.
Sex therapist? This could be awesome. It could be popular.
I might have a mild to moderate crush on me.
I'm addicted to wanking.
My pubes are out of control.
I wish I could be a normal kid with a normal dad, with a normal dick.
Prepare for the best 2 years of our lives.
Let me give you some condoms.
Oh, thanks, Mum. Stay out of my life.
What kind of man do you want to be?
What kind of man do you want me to be, Dad?
You can't choose who you're attracted to. You can't engineer a relationship.
I don't believe in love.
You are who you are. Don't let anyone take that away from you.
I still think it's weird a teenage boy's a sex therapist.
So Sex Education is a show we are all really, really proud to have worked on. It's a show that embraces and tackles so many important and contemporary subject matters. The scripts are beautiful and tell us the stories of our characters. It's our job to build the world that these characters live in and bring them to life. My aim as a designer was to design a heightened world with a bold visual take. The challenge and tonal tightrope was to create a feel for the show that was contemporary, balanced, with strong, timeless and nostalgic quality, playing with the universality of school experience. The time period then became subtly but intentionally blurred, and the location dislocated from reality. The brief from our director was to create a world from scratch, a considered, design-led, with a clear style and palette that would play a central role in the overall experience. So Ben, lean on you for a question. The design process was a hugely collaborative process with ourselves, our DOP, our costume designer, our colorist, everyone. Our aim was to create a language and shorthand into our sex ed world. What were the most important initial influences and elements from your end in order to create this world?
I think looking back on it, weirdly, it's not a particularly sexy answer, but it was logistically, we needed to find a school that was available and could be ours for a number of years. And we looked across England, and weirdly, the first one we saw was Moordale, as everybody knows it, but we saw about 20 odd empty campuses. And then I think we'd found that before you came on board, Harley, maybe. And then
yeah,
it was always my intention, it's my big pitch to you as well, which was, it was going to be a very British show, thoroughly British show, but its influences were going to be heavily US based, partly because I always loved those movies growing up, but it was also just that renderings of British school experiences had always tended to be grey and flat and not particularly optimistic. And I wanted to sort of set that straight. Just visually, it was something I was interested in, but I think it also really suited the sort of, like, not fairy tale, but slightly sort of allegorical style of Laurie's script. Like, it was not a real world. Everything was heightened in the script. And we needed visually a world that it could sit in, that was recognizable, but it was obviously, it was heightened. And we found that campus, and it started to just build out from there, because it was obviously, that's the main bit of architecture, that, and I'm sure you're going to go on to talk about Jean's house, but it was the school, the house, and then the environment just started building up from there. And it is, that part of the world in Wales is truly sort of fairy tale looking.
I remember when we first recce'd it, it was so beautiful. Like, I remember not appreciating how beautiful the Wye Valley was until we went.
Yeah, and it felt weirdly, some of the guys will speak more to this because they're more local than you and I are, Harley, but it felt massively undershot as well. Like, it was stuff that I was seeing places on recce's that I'd never seen on TV before. So we started to build out our world and our lookbook based on sort of just discovering more about that part of the world.
Well, I was going to say, our tone and our lookbook that we worked so hard on in the beginning, and it was a hugely like collaborative thing between all of us, but it was also really important that everyone signed up to it and everyone worked with those images and how we wanted it to look. And I remember that it was so important, that was the basis for our show, like how we, like all those late night meetings and just randomly me sending, or you sending me WhatsApps with pictures, they were all that, we were just like kind of living and breathing it, weren't we, to try and live in our sex ed world.
Yeah, and I'll hand over to you guys in a sec, because I do feel a bit of an imposter, but it was testament to all of you and your dedication to it and brilliant brains, that everything that went in didn't just get noted and somebody sort of nodded along to it. Next time you went into the art floor of the Kedgie building, which was our production building, it was on the wall, and it just kept building and building in this giant 360 collage of references and locations and ideas. And yours was definitely the busiest floor, I think, and it was the most industrious, but you could just see it all starting to sort of take shape. It's like the DNA grew with you guys, and then it sort of went in circles, didn't it, with the camera department and Jamie and cinematography and Rosa with costume. It's weird. Like, we still get grief from a few publications about the weird choices of the aesthetic of it, but it made sense to us, and I think that's what counted, and thankfully it's really connected with a lot of people. But when you had a new department come on board, you weren't having to pitch to them from a cold start, because you guys had built up, you'd rendered it, it was real. And then by the end of series 3, which I know we can't talk about, like, we're building more and more. And you guys, can you say how many sets you built this year, Harley?
Well, this year, I mean, we haven't worked out. I mean, Sam Sam will know, but I think like we like hundreds. Like I think it's part of the layers of this show. It's like building that detail is it's madness.
And it was a rod for all our own backs, and especially you guys, was that because we had such control over the look and the color and the texture, it meant you were no longer able to walk into a location and say, yeah, this will do. And that's sort of what most of us working TV in this country are used to, which is even if you get to do some flourishes, you'll still have to accept like a pharmacy is a pharmacy or a hospital is a hospital. But by the end of this, whatever was written, we have essentially built it, including a pharmacy and a hospital.
But I think it was that, like the tonality, like the palette that we had was so specific, and like the look, like we were kind of like, I remember in the beginning and well throughout, we've massively drawn on like those classic coming of age kind of 80s 90s films, haven't we? And you know, that timeless quality that we wanted to create, but it became part of our visual. It became this unique thing that we wanted to create for our show, and I think we, you know, achieved it. But it was a real challenge in the beginning to create that.
Yeah, and it's funny, not I hope it doesn't sound like I still lose sleep over it, but the people that it does annoy, it's weird, they fixate on two things. They fixate on lockers, which everybody says in this country, we never had lockers in our corridors. And the fact that Jackson, the head boy in first series, wore a Letterman jacket, which is sort of classic American work, but he's the only one that does. Otherwise, it isn't that wild. Like there's not so many untruths about it, but I don't think any of us wanted to sort of create a quintessential British school experience.
No, and I think for me, it was like, and this is for our wider team, it was so important that everyone was signed up to that aesthetic from the very beginning. And like, I wanted to give Myra a shout out at this point, our amazing action prop buyer, because like the level of detail in like the action props and all those things was like nothing. Every decision that was made, everyone that made a decision throughout this entire process had to make a considered aesthetic choice, because otherwise it would be jarring. You would be on the monitor on the shoot day and be like, that's wrong, that who's let that go through. And it was important that everyone was signed up to that same palette aesthetic look throughout, wasn't it? And we got there in the end. Like, you know, there's always times when we are still learning, but we did get there.
Yeah,
as we went through,
because it was definitely the biggest budget I'd had to work with. And like we had some big we've got some big set pieces, but I'd say if I was to say where I'm most excited where the money's spent, I think it is in detail. It's like having Jack and his team on board to do graphics that are perfect. Like nothing was like, yeah, that'll be fine. It was rigorous and it was all detailed, and it's the stuff that I love and makes me so happy and so excited to be on all of your guys' sets, is knowing that the attention to detail is superb. And I think it's funny, isn't it? Because you definitely catch yourself on occasion where it's like, oh God, are we over scrutinizing this? Does Jack need to do version 18 of the toilet sign and the bowling alley? and I know, I'm sure I pissed you guys off on numerous occasions, but it's the culmination of all the details and not to be too wanky about it, but like the love that goes into it from your guys' side, I see on screen, and I think it has a cumulative effect with the actors who are obviously amazing and the performances which are great, and Laurie's script is great, but it's for me the reason why I think Sex Ed has done as well as it has and sort of risen to the level of audience and sort of the fandom it's got, is because all of it is there. All of it is a lot of, like, hundreds of people putting a lot into it. And yeah, it's why I'm incredibly proud of it aesthetically.
Yeah, I think we all are. We're all really proud of it. I was just going to jump ahead to so we, as a show, we have a combination of builds and locations, and we have the dream of the school that is a campus site that we built within the spaces a lot. I think just the bedrooms for me were one of the most complicated sets because they're so detailed. I'm just going to show some pictures now, but like they're so detailed. And I think just going back to what you were saying, Ben, like we would start these processes by asking for like a character brief. Like when we have new characters in, we'd ask for a character brief from the writers, which would give us, you know, maybe their choice in music or sport, or, you know, the kind of the beginning. And then like our set deck team and our art department would run with it and kind of offer up lots of amazing things. And obviously because the bedrooms, there's a lot of them, and they are these little worlds that say so much about our characters, and they need to be different. They all need to be, you know, Amy's bedroom, you can see top left here, is like it's part of her grand house. So, and you know, socioeconomically she's in a very different place to say Eric, who's the top right picture here. So I think they were so interesting. The bedrooms for the kids, I think they were a real challenge. We will jump ahead just because we're running out of time, but like, so the school we were just talking about, so we did have this disused university site in Killeen, which was amazing. Like all our offices were there, our prop stores were there, our costume department was there, and it was a real, and like as Ben said, anyone could come into the art department and, you know, hang out, and it was a really lovely environment to work in. Busy but lovely, and construction were there as well. And Ben, you've touched on finding the school being one of the most pivotal points of building Moordale. I don't know, I think you've covered all the points, but is there anything else you wanted to say about Killeen, finding Killeen? Like,
yeah, it's my only worry, and my worry was dispelled because you guys have been nominated for the BAFTA 2 years in a row, so obviously I didn't need to worry. But what I think people don't realise is how much they see on screen was not there. Like the bones were there, and the building and the corridor and the floors, but everything else is an absolute refit. Like it's the top right one there, which is the main locker corridor, was a corridor of sorts, but it was an absolute hellhole, Harley, wasn't it? Like it was just in bits.
Yeah.
It was constructed.
It was a derelict site.
There's a reception desk in the middle of it. So I was always worried that people would just assume we'd lucked upon this perfect sort of campus ready to shoot, and it wasn't. Like it was, we had months and months of pre-work from you guys. At the same time, we were building the major sets of the Milburn house. But yeah, the school, there's one other thing I'll just say, and then I will mute myself, is story-wise, we needed a campus that it was believable that you could be anonymous on. So the whole of series 1 was based on the fact nobody knew who Otis and Eric were. So we needed somewhere that looked like it could have a couple of thousand kids, which is what we went with that, and it needed to be as big as it was. And I think it did. It raised eyebrows and pissed off some of the money people, because it's like, do you really need this and this and this and this corridor? And we kept building, like you and Cliff were like the dozers, like you wouldn't stop. Every corner we went round, it was like, well, let's do this as well. And we use it all, but it's a mega, like it's a metropolis inside there, but it needed to be story-wise, just so we could plop Otis in the middle of it and say that he could disappear in it.
I mean, I was going to bring you in, Sam, Cliff, at this point. Obviously yourself with Katie in series 1, but like over the last 3 years, you've, as well as your actual job and doing all your amazing job and construction and everything, you've kind of become a site manager for the school. Would that be fair to say? But how was it initially? Like, with obviously you worked with Gus, we all worked with Gus, our amazing construction manager, but like initially it was quite, I remember standing there and we always joke about the grass was yay high. Like it was genuinely a completely derelict site. Like no one had touched it for 4 years, had they?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of my top bullet points that I've put to talk about, was the conversation that we have very often about that the grass was up to my thighs on our first walk around in 2018, and the conversations that we had for about 5 months was whether the grass was going to be green again. The place, I mean, no one had looked after it for 2 years, I think, at all. So it was like a restoration project everywhere we went. And we would find corridors and rooms that might be part of the school, but also spaces that we could use for other things, like Ben said about a pharmacy and hospitals, doctors' surgeries, We used like some spaces that we turned into shopping malls. So the place was just so versatile, but everywhere we went, we had to like just be so considerate of what it looked like. So many spaces had bits of the ceiling falling down, flooding, like everywhere needed massive TLC before we could get in there. And then
dead flies, a lot of dead flies,
a lot of flies,
flies and rats.
Flies, rats, yeah.
Lots of rats.
Joy. The TV's glamorous, right?
Yeah. But you know, we couldn't have done it without Gus and the team that he brought. I mean, they were all amazing. You know, whenever we needed anything, they were there. Construction were on site, props were on site. We had the best people to lean on to help us get it all up to scratch.
And everyone was kind of up for it, weren't they? They were up for the mad challenge. Like it was really, everyone was like super collaborative.
Yeah.
And Miri, you had to source in a very short amount of time, basically huge runs of like school, like very specific. Like we just want new stuff. Like me and Ben were like, no, we want this very specific, you know, certain period. It needed to look a certain way. And like you were traveling the length and the breadth of the country trying to find schools that are shut down, right?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Thank you both for that. No, it was amazing. I mean, like everyone's already touched on, just having the opportunity to really create a specific look was just great. I mean, when do you get that, especially when you're doing a school? Normally if you're reading a script and it's like, oh, school, police station, hospital, you know, it's a bit like boring. But this was like, oh wow, we can really, you know, we can make something really great. And you're right, yeah, finding runs of interesting, slightly different, everything had a sort of a look to it, was really challenging. So yeah, we were sort of going to auctions all over the country, really. Lots of eBay, lots of international eBay. I think the English.
Say what for, Miri? That it was primarily erotica based eBay purchases.
Oh yeah, that of course, yeah, that's my own personal name. So like the English classroom was, I think the desks and chairs ended up coming from like a disused school in Hungary. But, you know, and they were brilliant. They had a real good style to them. But of course, when they arrived, they were all slightly short. So we ended up having to get Gus's team involved to raise them all up. So nothing was ever that simple, was it? But even just...
And we wanted it all like yesterday. It was very quick, the turnaround in the end.
And I was just, when you were talking about all the things we had to sort of find within that campus, like the whole sixth form common room. I'll never forget how we stood in the corridor, which, like you said, was like ceiling tiles had fallen down, flooding everywhere. I mean, the smell of rat piss. And then, you know, I remember Sam going, I think this could be the sixth form common room. And I was like, really? Okay, yeah, great, we can do that. And lo and behold, sort of a few walls knocked down and corridors added. We had a sixth form common room, that was a really fun set to do with I think we made a table tennis table. We had a very specific image. Do you remember, Shazam, with that girl on a like really attractive?
Oh yeah, the sofa. Yeah. And
it was like, right, we've got to get this sofa. So finding something that we could reupholster.
You're getting stuff recovered and yeah.
So you know, everything. It really was just about, you know, sort of telling ourselves what the rules are within this world, and we sort of had this real specific tone and saturation of colors, and things just all started to kind of pull together and create a really great palette that I think does run through the whole series, really. So it was good. It was great fun. Yeah. Stressful, fun.
Oh yeah. We're going to move on to the chalet now. The chalet being, I think Ben's already alluded to, probably our second most one of the most iconic sets that we have. It's where Jean and Otis live. I think that people know this, but the exterior is a location. It's a beautiful house, the chalet, and the interior is a build. We spent a long time looking. We recce'd a lot of places, and weirdly, recceing the interiors of houses was so informative to me because. And I think Ben will find it the same, but I know Jamie, we walked around like so many different interiors and we kind of worked out what wanted from the layout, like and like it started to inform how we built it quite, you know, really well. So we knew that it had to have this certain layout, and we knew we couldn't find that, so it became a build. So yeah, the interior, like downstairs and upstairs of the house, is a build. I think the one time we see, you know, and I think actually, yeah, we were working really closely with like Ben and when we built it, Ben and Jamie, our DOP. This shot is one of my favorite shots, like the symmetry of this and how when it was designed like that, and it became that shot that we wanted to have. So that was very successful. But Jean it's her place of work as well as her home, and building Jean as a character was really pivotal because she is a highly educated, very intelligent, you know, professional lady, and it just, you know, it had to reflect that layers of her, like the detail that she had. She's got an eye for design, that she's quite bohemian. She's got all this texture in her house and books and her office and everything, so that you can see some illustrations of that at the moment. There was some inside outside, like the one time as a show that we kind of shot on the threshold, so we did build into the chalet, the location. And Emma Ryder, I was just going to draw you in now because I know you surveyed that site, so we ended up building two spaces, didn't we, and moving that piece of flattage between those two sets.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously we've touched on a few times that everything was wanted yesterday, and I hope you don't mind me saying, but we did, and you guys decided to build the interior rather than use a location quite late into the shoot. So we sort of turned up to this knowing that it was going to be a build, sort of, I think it was 4 weeks before a certain actress was joining us. So, you know, we were building, we were drawing as we were building. And like you say, you came up, Sam, with the layout. And I think myself and Sam Speed, we marked it out on the floor while she was, I think, were you 6 months pregnant at that time? Had a walk around, and it was like, right, this is good, start building some flattage. But then obviously as the look is obviously so pivotal in the show, but then we also had to make sure that this did look like the inside of that house. So, you know, all the windows, like you say, the threshold, the cladding, you know, it all informed the interior, as well as your already really strong look for, like you say, Jean and Otis's house, and then suddenly there was this different spin of this exterior. But yeah, we had a piece of flattage that we would move between the sets, and the layout was so different than the chalet. And I think a lot of people, or they used to at least, go to the chalet for Airbnb and walk in and have that moment of, oh, this isn't Jean and Otis's house at all. So yeah, so it was very different. So we were able to put stuff in like that. And also, I think we put it up so quickly that we only built 2 walls for Jean's bedroom for the first series. Yeah. I think just for that one shot where she's in bed. And then it was great to be able to come back for the second series and enhance the house, and third series, which won't measure, but enhance the house so much more. Like, you know, Jean got a full bedroom with her balcony doors, which we hadn't seen before. You know, there was the party that we had to suddenly reinforce the stairs because there were going to be 20 students dancing on them. So it was also fun to see it evolve as well throughout the series.
The party was terrifying.
It looked amazing. This question's come in from the online, but also, Mary, we were going to ask Mary Decky, like, obviously it's going to come up as a question, but the decor, the objet, the specific stuff that we had to find, the sex related props for Jean, but it was so important to us that her artwork and her sculptures and everything in her house represented her, which was that she was a lady who was, you know, a lady of science, a lady who was, you know, this wasn't gratuitous, this was part of her, you know, travels. She discovered this amazing stuff. So we worked really hard to find the right decoration for her house, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, sort of like I think you mentioned, she's such a stylish, really effortlessly stylish character, that the house really needed to sort of reflect that. So I seem to remember we used to talk about how things should feel sort of thrown together, and not put out for show, but they just look brilliant. You know, it's that kind of like, you know, you could only wish that you had such good taste. So it was great doing Jean. And like Emma has mentioned, we had a really short amount of time, and And I remember seeing like the drawings and being like, oh, that's a huge kitchen. Like, why does it need to be that big? Or, please can we make it smaller? I don't have enough stuff to fill it.
This is not going to be smaller.
But yeah, it was, just constantly sort of looking for, you really have to get into the character's head really, and sort of when you're looking, you're trying to buy for so many sets, because actually we weren't just decking that set, there were loads of others that we were still prepping. So when you're out in like the antique markets or the boot sales, you're literally just like grabbing everything, and then on the dress days you are just sort of piecing it all together. And I'd love to say we had all the time in the world to really create an amazing mood board about everything that was going in, but you just don't have the luxury of that kind of time. So it was a lot of sort of really knowing what the style is and just getting out there and buying everything, and just car boots, charity shops, flea markets, eBay, and bring it all there and start building it. And that's the fun bit.
We kind of had a bit of a rule, didn't we, Mary, that there was nothing new really. We always worked with secondhand or stuff with a bit of life.
Yeah,
there's all odds and sods obviously, but generally like everything came with a little bit of history or a little bit of life before it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and like you said, her artwork, we commissioned a really lovely, he's a scenic artist, but he does incredible painting.
Michael May.
Yeah, so we gave him sort of quite a clear brief on the style. So in her office we've got some beautiful sort of oil artworks of nude, but tasteful nudes, because I think that was the thing, is we didn't, like you said, want it to be just gratuitous for the sake of it. So all the artwork was really well thought out, and obviously she's got her wall of fun things, which was great fun to piece together.
I'm just going to shimmy us forward because we've got, it's already later, but I'm going to leave us forward to the disused toilet, which I think is one of my favorite sets that we built. It's obviously quite a key location in terms of the narrative and the story, because it's where the sex clinic starts and it's where the kids meet. From a design point of view, when we built it, it was very much like this was built at the same time as the school. So it was like Victorian, and then it had a Victorian painted floor, and it had these stalls, and it had this, but then in the 70s they'd put in this, it's scripted as asbestos, but it's got this suspended ceiling, which Ben and Jamie, they had the most beautiful shots through the top of it, and it was just really stunning. And I remember Ben, you making me run around once trying to get a porn mag to put in the top for that top shot. Do you remember that? So we could see it. So we could see it when we were shooting through.
I think we put a dead bird and a rat up there or something. There's lots of little horrible Easter eggs up in the rat. I think we're going to put a gun up there once.
But I think we decided not to.
I think we played it not to.
But one of the most important things about this set is the graffiti, like the layers and layers of graffiti. And I think Sam, C, and Emma, I was going to bring you in because you helped coordinate quite a lot of the graffiti, and we had quite a lot of people come in to help us to give us those layers, because it needed to, again, in a sex ed way, it needed to not be too jarring, but it needed to be totally real. It needed to have so many layers, as if you'd imagine like there'd been decades of kids just scrawling on these walls and digging into them and carving into them. So do you have any insights into how the graffiti happened in the disused toilets?
Yeah, I mean, Emma and I beforehand, we pulled a lot of research together, like you say, looking over the decades and decades of what kids would have done while they were at school in the 70s. What sort of graffiti would they have put on the walls? And then again, it was a quick one. So we, over a weekend, had quite a few graphic designers in and scenic artists. So it was a case of do a cubicle, get a scenic in, do another cubicle, get a scenic in to age it, go on top of the layers of what the scenics had done, and just keep building it. And I think I definitely know in series 3 this year, which I'm not going to give any spoilers for, but even in series 3, we were still adding bits of graffiti to different areas of the cubicles that we were shooting that were being featured. I think you were there quite a lot that weekend, weren't you, Emma, doing some of the graffiti as well?
Thanks, Em. I think we all had a go. I think everyone had a go at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just going to jump us ahead and very quickly touch on the library, because this is a series 2 location set that we built within the school that we really like. So just wanted to bring up those pictures to show you. This we don't have to talk on it too much, but it's a really important illustration of the crossover between lighting and art department. I think the crossover between like how much in-vision lighting that works practically for the lighting department, but also for us aesthetically. And we commissioned these large like perspex light boxes that were visually very perfect. You can see them in the back of these images here. But yeah, like Sam, we worked very closely with lighting to make sure that they worked for all purposes.
Yeah, I mean,
which was a really important thing actually throughout our series.
Yeah, this was a space that was, I think, 3 or 4 spaces initially, and this was a part of the building with no power. So everything we put in, we had to work with the sparks to get it all practical, all the sockets, all the lights. And yeah, we designed the light boxes. We designed the fittings that went inside the light boxes to make sure we had the 360 glow on the light boxes. And then I think the light boxes then influenced a lot of the other lighting that we then put in. So instead of just putting the fluorescent tubes with the diffusers on, we managed to find some opal ones, which are, I think, discontinued now, to match what we had, and then influenced how we, under the mezzanine that we built, we then made light boxes in the ceiling under there, within the suspended ceiling, so it all had a similar kind of opal look. And I think we hired maybe 1 or 2 separate Prac Sparks to have very separate job roles in there, but we had to work with them for quite a long time to make sure it all kind of came together and looked.
It was a real lesson for me as well, seeing, because I think Jamie Venn should be mentioned, who's our lead Prac Spark guy, he's so practical, obviously, because it's in his title, but he's so artistic with how he does his stuff, and seeing him and his team work with you guys, I love it when you get those sort of blurred lines between departments where both rely on each other for the best looking result, but then also how it ends up on my plate is that it not only looks good, but it meant that it was essentially a 360 lit set, because believe it or not, we have absolutely no time to shoot this show, so you have to get in and you've got to shoot it pretty quickly, and you don't want to compromise on the quality of the look of it. So it means there is a lot of pressure on practical lighting in all the sets that we're in. So if you look at it, we joke sometimes that Jamie Kearney, our lead DP, it does look like he's running a lamp shop in certain sets. Like the Milburn house has about 18 lamps. But in the library, especially those sort of big monolith pracs that hang from the ceiling, which were based on Sam's references from the Breakfast Club, they look great, but it meant that we could go in and shoot pages and pages without lots of floor lighting, which is, again, not a sexy answer, but it's such a big part of everybody working together.
Yeah, that collaborate, because it means we can achieve so much. Yeah, it means we can shoot as efficiently as possible, doesn't it, if we all work together. I'm going to jump ahead to the series 2 sets. So the culmination of series 2, episode 8, is our game show and our school play. And it definitely felt at some point, and I'm sure Ben can concur, that it felt like we were designing a TV show, a full play, and a game show. It was quite busy, wasn't it, at that point? But we were very in the zone. And so these are some pictures from the National Student Quiz Awards, which is from the end of episode 2, which we shot as a broadcast TV show. We shot it at BBC Wales. And we we used a lot of the infrastructure that was there, the cameras and the gallery, so that we could make it as real as humanly possible. And Christina, I'll bring you in at this point. Obviously, you became the main liaison with the studio and facilitating this set going in, using the in-house technicians there. Yeah, do you want to talk through any challenges or how it kind of worked your end? Basically, kind of staging a quiz show.
Yeah, because we've shot it in BBC Llandaff, and they're built up to shoot live TV shows there. So we had to treat it the same kind of way. There's a show in previous to us, and there's a show in coming straight after us. So we had to do it as a quick turnaround. There wasn't much time to bring it in or out, so we had to sort of Sam designed a very beautiful set, sort of based on sort of 80s, 90s quiz shows, and so we had to build it in compartments so we could wheel it in quickly. We had a day to set it, light it, everything, and then film it. And then the day after, we had to break it down and wheel it back out again. So that was probably one of the hardest things. But using the actual studio itself was brilliant, because they had the in-house technicians who had everything there, who were set up for that. Yeah, they had we used, as you said, all the cameras, which they were all sort of vintage a bit. They were all a little bit older, looked right for the show, and you had to sort of rig it up with in-house their technicians. And
you worked really closely with Shabir, didn't you, who's our DIT, who was also helping facilitate, kind of process that footage and that material as well. It was really kind of, again, very collaborative between like camera and lighting and everyone.
Yeah, trying to keep it all in camera, so everything that basically we were filming them filming the show as well as filming the quiz show ourselves. So it was, keeping it all in camera so we could see the auto cues and everything in the gallery as well. And and the biggest issue is probably the flooring, because it's a big painted floor, and we weren't allowed to paint it. Yeah, it's a light grey floor, which didn't work for us at all. They wouldn't let us paint it after a lot of discussion. So in the end, we went for like a specialised removable vinyl, which we had half a day to stick it down, and then in the get out we managed to pull it all up and give them their floor back. So that was probably the biggest issue.
I think it looked great. I really enjoyed the game show. Stephen Ryan. Jack, hello.
Hello.
Hello. So I just want to acknowledge Emma, who did our series 1 graphics. But you obviously have been with us and designed lots of beautiful things. So I just wanted to talk. So as Ben has alluded to, and we've all talked about, the level of detail is so important, and
Absolutely.
Graphics, it often hits really hard, because trying to create anything with a sense of realism or within a short time frame is so hard. So what were your kind of main challenges and kind of favorite things that we did this year? Or not this year, previously.
Well, in season 2, there was lots of heavy graphic sets. So there was the games workshop type set, which was very heavy. There was also the hospital, which you mentioned earlier, but also is the one on screen now is the shopping centre, which was a kind of a collaboration of the whole art department. I think lots of people got involved trying to design stuff for this. So, and I got my team of Lucy, and I got another graphic designer in Drew. He helped out. And we all took a couple of shops each to design. And it was a definite collaboration of everybody in the art department.
I loved the shopping centre.
Yeah, it was a very heavy, and especially I think I remember it was quite a heavy part of the schedule. So we had lots of big sets around it coming up or just gone past, so not a lot of turnaround on it. And then
it was a working shopping centre, so the getting was really
absolutely it was placed down in Port Talbot. And then we all went in on a weekend trying to dress it.
Yeah,
I think it was one of the hottest days of the year as well.
It was, yeah.
So we'll finish by talking about the school play, which is the culmination of series 2. Ben, this was a huge feat. I mean, we ended up basically designing an entire play, and you ended up almost seeing through or kind of blocking through an entire play and then picking the key scenes. Like, what was the kind of most exciting thing or the most challenging thing from your end?
One of the weird things about series 2 is that I did block 2, so I didn't start shooting until we're a few months in, which was good in lots of ways, and especially with this one, because it gave me an excuse to keep pushing it down the road. So we started having meetings on it early on. So I've got a 3-year-old raving. Bosie, go upstairs. And so we had, in the script, it was very minimally sort of set out. It was Romeo and Juliet, Jackson's in it.
Sorry.
Jackson's in it, and we need these scenes and these lines, but everything else was sort of it was our gift. So we had a meeting with you guys, with Rosa costume, with Laurie, the writer, on the phone, and we just started, and we had a very cheesy, I've still got the picture of it, our brainstorm of keywords for what it was, and it was sort of, because it was Lily, it was quite extreme, so it's sort of sex-based, space-based erotica. And we just started building it out from there. And we got to the point where we were getting so excited about it. Ollie Julian, our composer, wrote some amazing original songs. We got to a point where it got too big, and we said it's going to look ridiculous because it looks like Lily has a West End budget, and we sort of embraced that. And that went for you guys and lighting and everything else, and it became this big thing, and I love it. I couldn't love it more. But it got too big for me to actually do it. So I hired in my best friend from school, who's an amazing, very accomplished, award-winning theatre director, Rob Hasty, who came in and directed with the cast of the show, because it became a show within a show. He directed it and then started feeding in directly to the two Sams about what he needed, and Ewan, the choreographer. So we ended up, and it was a really brilliant, mad 3 days in the assembly hall. And we sort of put this thing on. It was completely felt separate to the rest of the shoot, but it was like producing a theatre show. That's what we came down to, Harley, wasn't it? It was like, this has to look, it has to have more, it has to, in show business, we call it handle. So it can't just start from action and end on cut. It needs to feel like it exists before that and after that. So we then, and it feels slightly wasteful occasionally, but you need to produce it bigger than what you're going to cut it down to. So in the end, I think the uncut version of it runs at about 10 minutes, and we used about 6.5 minutes of it. But again, it was, the challenge for you guys was, it was 360 and it was interactive. So you've got dancers and people coming in with dick hands and stuff from all entrances. And it was a busy 3 days, but, oh, and also, sorry, then I'll shut up. We shot within our assembly hall location, but we needed the wings and behind the scenes, which you then built as a set of wings at the school. So it was probably more like 4 days total. But it was magical. And it was hell to edit, because I, in my classic style, overshot it. And we had so much coverage. And Dave Webb, who's a very, very clever editor, sort of kicked me out for a few days and made sense of it, and then boiled it down to what you see now. And it's just a feast. I love it.
Yeah, it's so good. And actually, I'm just going to jump to Sam and Emma. We had the practicalities of putting that in. We had no time to get it in. We had to actually raise the set and kind of we had to kind of stage it as almost like some kind of touring theatre production, and raise it in a different location and then take it in because of the restrictions on the location.
Yeah, I mean, totally. We took over a bit of a studio from another production, got riggers in to build a double of the stage at the pageant rooms, and then bring our stage in, build it, and then work with the lighting team again, because the whole stage was a lighting element, as well as the prop makers, to get everything in there as it would have been at the location, which when we were able to get in there, I think we had 2 days to do it, Emma?
Yeah, it was quick.
Really quick, yeah. I think Emma was very, very hands-on with this. You made a lot of the You did a lot of the prop making as well, didn't you, with the prop makers?
Yeah, I had a team of really lovely people who came in, and it was just constantly layered, but you had to blur that line, like you say, between, right, the students have made it, Lily's designed it, what could they do, but also it has to be this fantastical thing that, like, how would it have got to this point without people going, they're walking the corridors with massive penises. So, but it was so much fun because of that fact, and that's why it looks so good as well in the end.
And Ben touched upon this, but the main school play is in where we shoot the assembly hall, which doesn't have a backstage or a kind of dressing room element. So we built that, and Alex, myself and you and the team obviously, but we, there was a lot of challenges throughout the whole of the play, but that was also a big challenge, wasn't it? With trying to kind of almost create the wings in what is effectively just a black box space.
Yeah, it was, yeah, I mean, the whole play was absolutely incredible, and actually very, like everyone said, really, really collaborative in terms of our department, graphics, Will creating, and the prop makers making this amazing tree, and with lighting and everything. And like you say, sort of moving that to the set build. And actually the wings, because it was also kind of being shot in 360, so every single element of it had to be dressed, and there's sort of this beautiful shot of the camera kind of moving all the way around and seeing every single element with all these props on the wall, like Emma's sort of amazing prop guns that were up there that we'd then kind of later see in the play.
I think that leads into Hendrix's it's this amazing one, or it's so cool, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It was sort of a really, really fun, brilliant shot. So I think it was the challenge of sort of doing that and making it look like nobody would know that they weren't actually part of the same thing. And like you've mentioned before, our amazing action prop by Maya, sort of there was loads of action props, and she did an amazing job sourcing those for the play. And the penis stage, which Sam and Emma sort of touched on, was amazing. Just the whole thing, just everything just came together for the play. And I remember on the first day of shoot, Emma and I were up in the balcony and just watching the rehearsal, and we were just in awe of all of these departments coming together and just creating something so amazing. And we were just standing watching, and then we both looked at each other and were like, oh, we've got loads more sets to go and do, and we kind of had
we're not supposed to be here, we need to stop laughing and actually go.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was kind of leading into the time that we were doing the shopping centre, which was obviously another massive sort of set piece. So I think like everyone has touched on, the get-ins for all of the sets are always really short, and actually you're not just working on one set, you're working on 10, 15 sets or more all at the same time, which is definitely a challenge, but the team works so brilliantly together that it was just amazing. Just very quickly, I also loved propping Lily's sort of space desk. That was really, really fun.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Nina drew that.
Yeah, really loved doing that. And then with the Sam sort of working with construction to actually build it and fit in these ridiculously shaped
there it is,
bits of kit. And actually you work on something like that, and then it's lovely that actually in such detail it does make it onto screen, which was really, really nice. So that was a fun bit. Actually, yeah, that's a really beautiful shot. The whole thing is obviously beautifully shot. So yeah, that was a really fun bit and a bit of a challenge. But again, working with everyone and our prop team and construction, lighting, was good and looked amazing at the end.
So I think that's drawn us to the end of our time. So I think the last slide we have is, I just want to say a massive thank you to people who aren't here, people that can't be with us today, but I want to thank everyone who's worked with us from all our years. Just from the BFDG side, if you would like more information at the BFDG, including the benefits of individual corporate or educational membership, that can be found at the BritishFilmDesignersGuild.com. We may have time for like a couple of quick questions before we get cut off. I'm just having a look what's come in.
Sam, there is a question about trainees. I think it's really important to mention how many trainees we got from the Cardiff University course. We had amazing trainees come in, and they were so hands-on. They helped Jack and all the prop makes as well. And Emily, our Series 2 trainee, then became our art department assistant. We couldn't have done Series 3 without her, or Series 2. So they were a massive part of it. So yeah, I think the person was asking for advice. I can't see the thing anymore. But it's not about experience. Like, we were welcoming anyone with an artistic eye or an artistic hand, and we work with, like, our team, as you can tell, is amazing, and everyone would take them under their wing. So I think, don't worry about experience, just reach out, and if you're passionate, you'll hopefully get a chance to work with wonderful people.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we had an amazing affiliation with the University of South Wales and skills and screen skills, and they were brilliant. Everyone we had was great, and as many have gone off to do amazing things. So yeah, so if you're trying to get into it, it's there's lots of opportunities, and it's a really fun industry. So yes, I think that is us. So thank you all for listening to us. Thank you. Don't know if we get cut off.